Before your brain forms a thought, your body is already deciding something. Safe or not safe. It happens beneath language, beneath logic, beneath awareness. And sometimes all it takes to shift that decision is a hand resting gently on your back. Tonight, we're going to explore why, what touch does to your nervous system, why being held can change your breathing, your heartbeat, even the chemistry in your blood, before you consciously understand why you feel different. There is a moment, and you may know this one, when someone puts their arms around you and something in you just gives. Not all at once. Subtle at first. Barely perceptible, really. A breath you didn't realize you were holding starts to release, so slowly you almost can't feel it happening, like a seam slowly loosening in the middle of your chest. Your shoulders, which had been creeping slowly upward all day without you noticing, begin their quiet descent. The muscles along your spine, which have been holding everything upright through all the hours of whatever today was, begin to soften just slightly, like they've finally received permission. Your jaw unclenches. The muscles of your face, which had been organized around whatever expression you needed to have for the world, go quiet. And here is the remarkable thing about that moment, the thing I want to start with tonight. Your body does all of this before you even have a thought about it. Before you have registered that you feel better, before you have formed the word safe in your mind, before the prefrontal cortex has had a chance to weigh in with its commentary on the situation, your nervous system has already received the message and begun responding. The body knows something the thinking mind hasn't caught up to yet. It knows it before you know it. And the knowing is not metaphorical or sentimental. It is biological. It is happening at the level of nerve fibers and hormone signals and electrical activity in the brainstem. This gap, the space between when touch first lands on your skin and when your brain consciously registers that something has changed, is where tonight's story lives. Because inside that gap, which is only a few seconds at most, an enormous amount of biology is happening. A cascade of events is being set in motion, originating in the surface of your skin and traveling inward, touching almost every major system in your body as it goes. And understanding that cascade, really understanding it in its detail and its beauty, changes the way you see something as simple as a hand on your shoulder. It changes the way you see loneliness, too. Because if you understand what safe touch does to the body, you begin to understand, with a kind of precise clarity, what the absence of it costs. You understand why skin hunger is a real term in the scientific literature, not a poetic overstatement, not a metaphor, but a description of an actual physiological state of deprivation. You understand why being held is not a luxury on top of a life, but something woven through the life itself, regulating the biology that everything else depends on. But let's begin at the beginning. Let's begin with the skin. Your skin is remarkable. It is the largest organ in the human body, a fact that most people know but few have really sat with. In adults, skin covers roughly 2 square meters of surface area. If you could unfold it and lay it flat, it would be roughly the size of a large blanket, enough to cover you completely and leave some left over. It contains millions of nerve endings of different kinds, sensitive to pressure, temperature, pain, vibration, and subtler things still. It is not just a surface, not just a container for the rest of you. It is a sense organ of extraordinary complexity and discrimination. And it has been this way in you specifically for a very long time. Touch is the first sense to develop in the human body. It emerges in the developing fetus at around 8 weeks of gestation. Before the eyes can see, before the ears can hear, before most of the nervous system has assembled itself into anything recognizable. At 8 weeks, the brain is still an early sketch of what it will become. The limbs are just budding, and yet the skin is already learning to feel. Touch comes first. It has always come first. By the time you were born, your skin had spent months already at work. You had felt the pressure of the uterine walls. You had felt the resistance of your own hands when you touched your face. You had learned, in the wordless dark, that there was a world outside your own body that could be felt. And when you came into the world and were placed on your mother's skin, or wrapped and held, your nervous system was primed to receive that experience and interpret it in a specific way, as something good, as something necessary, as the return of something it had already been oriented toward. This ancient, developmental primacy of touch is not incidental to tonight's story. It is the foundation of it. Because the reason touch reaches us so deeply, the reason it can cut through the noise of a difficult day and shift something fundamental in the body, is precisely because it is speaking to systems that have been listening since before we had any other way of being in the world. Touch speaks to the oldest parts of us, now threaded through your skin, woven into it like a second nervous system running just beneath the surface are nerve endings of different kinds. Some of these respond to pressure, the 4-point contact of a fingertip, the weight of a hand resting on a shoulder. Some respond to temperature, the warmth of another person's skin against yours, or the coolness of a compress. Some respond to pain. Some respond to vibration, to the quick small movements of a massage or a pat on the back. And then there are some that respond to something rarer and more specific than any of those. Slow, gentle, moving contact at the specific speed and warmth of a caress. These are the nerve fibers that matter most to our story tonight. About 30 years ago, a Swedish neuroscientist named Ake Valbo was using a technique called microneurography, a method that involves placing an extremely fine tungsten electrode directly through the skin and into a peripheral nerve, close enough to a single fiber to record its individual electrical activity. And he found something that would eventually become one of the more significant discoveries in the science of touch. He found a class of nerve fiber in the hairy skin of the human body, the skin of the forearms, the back, the shoulders, the scalp, the face, that behaved in a way unlike anything previously described. These fibers were unmyelinated, meaning they lacked the fatty myelin sheath that surrounds and insulates faster nerve fibers. This meant they were slow. They conducted their electrical signal at roughly 1 meter per second, far slower than the large myelinated fibers in your skin, which travel at around 50 meters per second. For comparison, the signal that tells you you've been touched by something sharp travels nearly instantly. The signal in these new fibers takes its time, but their slowness was not the most striking thing about them. What was striking was what they responded to. Most touch-sensing nerve fibers respond to a wide range of stimuli. They fire when the skin is pressed, moved, deformed. But these slow fibers had a very particular preference. They responded most powerfully to a specific kind of touch. Gentle, slow, warm contact moving across the surface of hairy skin at roughly 3 centimeters per second. That is approximately the speed of a hand being drawn softly and slowly down an arm. The speed of a caress. Go faster and the fibers quiet. Go slower and they fall into relative silence. But at that precise, unhurried pace, warm-skinned, gentle, moving. They light up with remarkable intensity. Scientists would eventually measure their firing rates at up to 100 electrical pulses per second during optimal stimulation. They would find that the force required to activate them was as low as a fraction of a gram of pressure. They were extraordinarily sensitive, and what they were sensitive to specifically was touch that moves the way a hand moves when it is being careful, when it is being kind. These fibers are called C-tactile afferents. And what makes them truly extraordinary is not just their selectivity. It is where their signal goes once it leaves the skin. Most touch sensations, the feeling of texture, the location of a hand on your body, whether something is sharp or smooth or rough, travel primarily through the somatosensory cortex. This is the part of the brain that maps the body, that figures out exactly what is being touched and where. It is the analytical part of the touch system. Processes touch as information. It answers the question, what is touching me, and where, and what kind of thing is it? But the C-tactile afferents bypass this primary analytical route. Their signals travel instead toward the insula, specifically the posterior insula, a region deep within the brain that is intimately connected to emotional experience, to the body's sense of its own internal state, to what researchers call interoception, the felt sense of the body from the inside. The insula is not analyzing. It is feeling. It is participating in the body's moment-to-moment experience of itself. And it is profoundly connected to the processing of emotion and to the regulation of the autonomic nervous system. So when C-tactile afferents fire in response to a slow, gentle caress, they are not primarily sending information about the location and quality of a touch. They are sending a different kind of signal. One that, when it arrives in the insula, is experienced as emotionally meaningful, as something that matters, as something that might be rendered in the simplest translation as something kind is happening here. Research has supported this interpretation repeatedly. In brain imaging studies, when people receive CT fiber activating touch, slow, gentle stroking at the right velocity, the insula shows significant activation. And when researchers ask people to rate how pleasant the touch feels, those ratings correlate strongly with how actively the CT fibers are firing. The fibers are not just registering that they've been touched. They are encoding pleasantness directly at the level of individual nerve cells. Think about what that means for a moment. There is a dedicated neural system in your skin whose entire biological purpose appears to be to detect slow, gentle, warm, social touch. The kind of touch that happens between bodies that are safe with each other, and to register it as emotionally positive. This system didn't evolve by accident or as a side effect of something else. It evolved because, for social mammals, detecting and responding to safe physical contact from others was critically important. Because touch, in the context of primate and mammalian social life, carries information that no other sense can quite convey. You can hear someone say you're safe. You can see their face arranged in an expression of warmth. But when you feel their hand on your arm, when you feel the weight and warmth of their body close to yours, you receive something those other senses cannot give you: direct physical evidence. The evidence of a body close and calm, not tense for attack, not pulling away, present and warm and here. Your nervous system knows the difference between the report of safety and the felt fact of it. And this is precisely why touch works so deeply, why it can shift things in the body that words cannot reach. Because words are processed in the newer, more recently evolved parts of the brain, the parts that also doubt, analyze, and argue. But the signal from a C-tactile afferent lands somewhere older. In territory that doesn't argue, that doesn't need convincing. Simply receives and shifts. The speed of these fibers, which initially seems like a limitation, turns out to be a feature of the design. Because the signal taking its time on the slow road to the insula is also taking a different route through the nervous system than fast touch signals do. It is being processed through a different pathway, evaluated by different neural machinery, and integrated with the emotional and autonomic state of the body in a way that fast touch cannot. This is why a gentle, slow stroke of the arm feels categorically different from a quick, efficient pat, even if the force and location are similar. The slow touch is reaching the C-tactile system. It is speaking in the frequency this system was designed to hear. And the C-tactile system, when it receives that signal, begins to speak to the rest of the body in turn, triggering a cascade of changes that reaches far deeper than the skin. The next step in that cascade is one of the most important nerves in the human body. The vagus nerve is one of the great rivers of your nervous system, and it deserves more attention than it usually receives. Its name comes from the Latin word for wandering, and it earns that name completely. The vagus nerve is not a simple wire running from point A to point B. It is a great branching, meandering tree of neural fibers that originates deep in the brainstem, in a region called the medulla oblongata, and from there winds its way through the neck, branches past the larynx and the pharynx, winds around the heart, threads through the lungs, and descends all the way into the gut, reaching as far as the colon. It is the longest of the 12 cranial nerves. It touches almost every major organ in the trunk of the body. And it serves as the primary conduit of the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of the autonomic nervous system responsible for what is often called rest and digest. To understand what the vagus nerve does, you need to understand the broader landscape it operates in. Your autonomic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that runs without your conscious direction. You don't decide to make your heart beat, or your lungs breathe, or your digestion move. These things happen continuously below the level of intention, governed by the autonomic system. And this system has two primary branches that work in opposition to each other. The sympathetic nervous system is the branch of activation, of mobilization, of response to threat. When something frightening happens, a sudden loud noise, a narrowly avoided collision, a confrontation with someone who means you harm, the sympathetic nervous system activates. It releases adrenaline and noradrenaline from the adrenal glands. It speeds the heart, dilates the pupils, tightens the muscles, sends blood rushing from the digestive organs to the limbs. It suppresses immune function temporarily to prioritize immediate survival. It sharpens certain kinds of attention while narrowing the field of what you perceive. It prepares you in every biological way it can to move fast, to fight, to survive. This is a remarkable system. In the moments it was designed for genuine, immediate physical threats, it saves lives. And it does not feel mechanical when it activates. It feels like urgency, like energy, like the world suddenly having edges. It is one of the great biological achievements of evolution. But the problem, the quiet, chronic problem of modern human life, is that this system doesn't require an actual tiger. It doesn't require a genuine, immediate, physical threat. It simply requires the sense of threat. A looming deadline, a difficult relationship, the persistent, formless anxiety that doesn't have a specific object but just sits somewhere in the chest and makes itself known all day. A news cycle that never resolves. A conversation you haven't had yet with someone who matters to you. For many people, in many lives, the sympathetic nervous system is running at a low but sustained level of activation much of the time. Not at full emergency pitch, but above baseline. A state of mild, chronic preparation, the heart rate a little elevated, the breathing a little shallow, the muscles carrying a subtle, persistent tension, the whole system slightly lit up, slightly watchful, using energy that it doesn't need to use, wearing down systems it isn't designed to sustain indefinitely. And this is where the vagus nerve becomes so central to tonight's story. Because the vagus nerve is how your nervous system applies the brakes. It is how the body comes down from activation. When vagal tone is high, when the vagus nerve is active and running well, it does something called cardio inhibition. It releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine onto the heart's pacemaker cells, which slows the heart rate. This is a continuous, gentle process that happens with every breath. Your heart rate naturally slows slightly when you exhale, and this is the vagus nerve doing its work. The variation between heartbeats that changes with your breathing, called heart rate variability or HRV, is essentially a measure of how well the vagus nerve is doing its job. High heart rate variability means the vagal brake is active and responsive. Low heart rate variability means the system is stiff, stuck in a more fixed, less regulated state. High vagal tone is associated with a remarkable range of good outcomes. Better emotional regulation, better resilience to stress, better recovery from stressful events, better immune function, better quality of sleep, lower levels of inflammation in the body. It is one of those measures that touches almost everything because it reflects the overall state of the autonomic nervous system's capacity to regulate itself. And touch, gentle, safe, caring touch, activates the vagus nerve. When those C-tactile afferents in your skin fire in response to a slow, warm caress, the signals they send inward follow pathways that include stimulation of vagal activity. Research has shown this directly. During gentle touch, heart rate variability increases, a clear sign that the parasympathetic system is gaining influence over the heart. Studies measuring the response to slow stroking, to holding hands, to massage, to even being patted gently on the back. Across many different designs and many different populations, find consistent evidence that the vagal brake engages more firmly during safe physical contact. The heart doesn't just slow, it becomes more variable in the beautiful, regulated way that high vagal tone produces. Breathing deepens, or at least it becomes possible to breathe more deeply. The body shifts gradually and measurably in the direction of that rest and digest state that the parasympathetic system governs. There is something worth pausing on here about how the touch reaches the vagus nerve. The skin of the outer ear and the region behind and around the ear canal is one of the places where branches of the vagus nerve run close to the surface, close enough that gentle touch in that area can directly stimulate vagal activity. This is part of why fingers in the hair, or a hand cupped gently around the side of the face, or a cheek rested against another person's shoulder near the neck. These specific kinds of contact feel disproportionately calming, disproportionately soothing, in ways that don't entirely reduce to pressure or warmth. They are reaching the vagus close to its source. And there is something else about the vagus nerve that is important to understand, something that makes it not just a wire running from brain to body, but something more like a two-way channel, a conversation between the two happening continuously. Roughly 80% of the fibers in the vagus nerve carry signals upward, from the body to the brain. Not from brain to body as we might assume, but in the opposite direction. Your organs, your heart, your gut, your lungs are constantly sending information through the vagus nerve toward the brainstem and through relay circuits toward higher brain regions. This information is being used continuously to help generate your subjective experience. This is part of what the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio was pointing at with his concept of the somatic marker. The idea that the body state is not separate from how we think and feel, but is continuously feeding into it. This is why emotions feel physical, why anxiety lives in the chest or the stomach, why grief has a weight to it, a heaviness that is not metaphorical, why fear makes your legs want to run, why happiness feels like something opening in the chest. The body is not illustrating the emotion. The body is, in significant part, creating it by sending signals upward through the vagus nerve that the brain integrates into feeling. And so when the vagus nerve is running in its calm state, when the heart is steady, the gut is at ease, the lungs are slow and deep, the messages coming up from the body are calm messages. And the brain, reading those signals, generates something that we might call peace. Not just the absence of distress, but something more positive than that. A quiet fullness, a sense that things are okay, the felt sense of safety. This is what the body is doing when it is held by someone safe. The vagus nerve, calmed by the signals of gentle touch, is sending new messages upward. Messages of a body that is slowing down, settling in, no longer braced. And those messages, traveling to the brain, become the feeling of relief. All of this is happening while you're still not entirely sure why you feel better. The body, when it is held safely, is doing chemistry. Not metaphorically, literally. In the minutes and seconds following safe, caring touch, your hypothalamus, a small but remarkably important structure nestled at the base of your brain, begins releasing one of the most significant molecules in human social life, oxytocin. You may have heard it called the bonding hormone or the love hormone or the cuddle chemical. All of those names are attempts to capture something about it, but none of them quite does it justice. Oxytocin is a neuropeptide, a short chain of amino acids, 9 of them in a specific sequence, that functions both as a hormone released into the bloodstream and as a neurotransmitter acting directly in the brain. It is produced in 2 specific clusters of neurons in the hypothalamus, the paraventricular nucleus and the supraoptic nucleus. From there, it is released in 2 ways: into the posterior pituitary gland, which secretes it into the bloodstream, and directly from the axons of oxytocin-producing neurons into regions of the brain where it acts locally. The effects of oxytocin are remarkably broad and have been studied extensively over the past few decades. It reduces anxiety, measurably, by dampening the activity of the amygdala, the almond-shaped structure on each side of the brain that acts as a threat detection and alarm system. The amygdala is extraordinarily important for survival, but it can also be overreactive, keeping the nervous system in a state of hypervigilance long after a threat has passed. Oxytocin quiets it. With less amygdala activity, the world looks a little less threatening, ambiguous situations are interpreted a little more generously, and the baseline level of the nervous system's defensive posture softens. Oxytocin also increases trust. Not blindly, not indiscriminately, but as part of a general shift in social orientation. It promotes the sense that others are safe, that closeness is okay, that vulnerability is not immediately dangerous. It supports the biological systems of bonding, the profound attachment between parent and newborn child, the closeness between romantic partners, the warmth between close friends. It is released in large quantities during childbirth, facilitating the process and helping initiate the fierce, immediate attachment that most parents feel the moment they hold their newborn for the first time. It is released during breastfeeding, during sexual contact, during long hugs, during the gentle stroking of skin on skin. And it has powerful anti-stress effects, primarily through its relationship with the stress hormone cortisol. Cortisol is released by the adrenal glands in response to activation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the chain of hormonal signals that the brain uses to mobilize a stress response. When you perceive a threat, or even when you anticipate one, this axis activates and cortisol pours into the bloodstream. Cortisol raises blood sugar for quick energy. It sharpens certain kinds of attention. It temporarily suppresses immune function and reproductive processes to prioritize immediate survival needs. In the short term, it is adaptive and necessary. But cortisol is designed for short-term use. When the stressor passes, cortisol levels are supposed to return to baseline, and all those processes that were temporarily suspended resume their normal function. The problem for many people in modern life is that the stressors don't pass. They are chronic, ambient, low-grade, the kind that the cortisol system was never designed to handle. And when cortisol remains elevated over long periods, it does real damage. It impairs memory consolidation. It disrupts sleep. It contributes to cardiovascular problems. It accelerates aging in certain immune cells. It affects mood, sometimes profoundly. It keeps the nervous system in that state of chronic mild activation, that low-level readiness for threat that costs so much energy and disrupts so much function. Oxytocin, when released in response to safe touch, counteracts the effects of cortisol through several mechanisms. It inhibits the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, essentially telling the brain to ease up on the cortisol signal. It dampens the activity of the sympathetic nervous system. It promotes the anti-stress effects of the parasympathetic system. And the result, measurable in the blood and saliva within minutes of safe physical contact, is a decrease in cortisol levels. Research groups studying this have consistently found that affectionate touch, a hand held, a back rubbed, a hug that lasts more than a moment or two, produces decreases in salivary cortisol. In one study design that has been replicated in various forms, couples who hugged each other showed lower cortisol responses to subsequent stressors than those who hadn't. The physical contact in the time before the stressor was introduced had shifted the baseline. The body had been softened by the touch in a way that made it more resilient when difficulty came. People who regularly receive affectionate touch, who live in relationships and environments where safe physical contact is a normal part of daily life, tend to show lower baseline cortisol levels over time. Their stress responses are not absent, but they recover more quickly. The system rises when it needs to and comes back down efficiently, rather than staying elevated. Touch, experienced regularly and safely, trains the body toward a more regulated baseline. And there are other molecules involved in this chemistry beyond the oxytocin-cortisol axis. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter most associated with reward, motivation, and the sense that something is worth seeking increases during positive physical contact. This is part of why being held feels not just calming but genuinely good. Not just the absence of distress, but something with a positive quality. The reward system is engaged. Serotonin, which plays a role in mood regulation and in what might be called the body's background sense that things are basically okay, also rises with affectionate touch. And endorphins, the body's endogenous opioid molecules, structurally similar to morphine, produced by the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, are released with touch, particularly with pressure and with the kind of close physical contact involved in a hug or embrace. The endorphin connection is worth lingering on for a moment because it speaks to something we've all probably intuited. Being held hurts less. Not dramatically, not in any way that would substitute for proper pain treatment, but measurably. There is research showing that safe, caring touch reduces the subjective experience of pain, and the endorphin release during physical contact is part of the reason. This is likely part of why, in moments of grief or shock or overwhelming emotion, the first thing we do or the first thing we want is to be held. The body is not being irrational or theatrical. It is seeking, with genuine biological precision, the chemistry that softens pain. All of this, the oxytocin, the reduced cortisol, the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins, rises from an act as simple and as ancient as one person placing their arms around another. And it rises even before consciousness has processed what's happening. The chemistry is already moving by the time you have your first thought about the embrace. Now let's go a little deeper, because while the specific molecules of touch are remarkable and important, there is an even bigger picture worth understanding. A framework that explains not just what happens in the body during safe touch, but why the nervous system is organized at the deepest level to respond to touch in the way it does. Why safety for a mammal, for a human, is so fundamentally a social experience. Why being alone and being unsafe are, at some level, the same thing to the nervous system. In the early 1990s, a neuroscientist at the University of Illinois named Stephen Porges began developing a theory about the autonomic nervous system that would eventually change the way large parts of clinical psychology, trauma research, and neuroscience thought about human behavior and emotional experience. He called it polyvagal theory, and while it remains a framework that is still being refined and debated in some of its specific anatomical claims, its central insights have been broadly influential and are supported by a wide body of research. The theory begins with an observation that seems simple but carries profound implications. The autonomic nervous system, the system that runs your heart, your lungs, your digestion, your threat responses, is not a simple toggle switch between stressed and calm. It is a hierarchical system with multiple levels, each level corresponding to a different evolutionary age, each level activated in a specific sequence depending on how safe the nervous system assesses the situation to be. At the most ancient, evolutionarily primitive level is what Porges calls the dorsal vagal complex. This is a branch of the vagus nerve that predates mammals in evolutionary history. It is found in reptiles and fish and other creatures whose autonomic nervous system is much simpler than ours. In extreme, inescapable threat, when fighting is impossible, when fleeing is impossible, when there is no way out, this system can trigger a dramatic shutdown. The heart rate drops sharply. Muscle tone collapses. The body goes still or collapses. This is the biology behind the freeze response, behind dissociation in its most extreme forms, behind the kind of paralysis that can accompany overwhelming trauma. It is the nervous system's last resort, a kind of playing dead, metabolically conservative, buying time when there is nothing else to do. Above that, in evolutionary history, came the sympathetic nervous system, the system of mobilization. When there is danger that can be responded to, when fight or flight is possible, this system activates. The heart speeds up, the muscles fill with blood, attention sharpens toward the threat. This is the system of urgency, of action, of meeting the world with force or speed. But in mammals, and this is the heart of what Porges discovered, there is a third system. A branch of the vagus nerve that evolved more recently, that is found in mammals and is more developed in social mammals, more developed still in primates and humans. Porges calls this the ventral vagal complex, and it originates from a different part of the brainstem than the primitive dorsal vagal. This newer vagal system is myelinated, insulated for speed and precision in ways the more primitive system is not. And its function is not threat response at all. Its function is social engagement. The ventral vagal complex, when it is active, does something extraordinary. It coordinates the regulation of the heart with the expression of the face and the quality of the voice. The muscles of the middle ear that tune hearing to the frequencies of human speech, vocal prosody, the music of language, are regulated by this system. The muscles around the eyes that create genuine warmth and openness in an expression are regulated by this system. The muscles of the larynx and pharynx that give voice its tone, its warmth, its invitation, regulated by this system. And the heart itself, through this myelinated vagal pathway, is gently and continuously regulated, kept in the range of calm alertness that Porges associates with social presence. When you are in the presence of someone safe, when you hear a voice whose prosody conveys warmth and calm, when you see a face that is genuinely open and present, when you are touched with care, the ventral vagal complex is active, and what it creates, in physiological measurable terms, is what Porges calls the social engagement state. A condition of calm alertness in which the body is at rest, the defenses are lowered, and the capacity for genuine connection, for curiosity, for presence, for warmth toward another human being, is available. This is not a passive state. It is an active, ongoing regulation. The ventral vagal complex is continuously running a kind of biological diplomacy, signaling to other nervous systems, through the face, through the voice, through the touch, that you are safe, that you are open, that the defenses don't need to be up. And receiving these signals from another nervous system, particularly through touch, triggers your own ventral vagal system to come online. This is what Porges calls co-regulation. Two nervous systems in close proximity, regulating each other. The calmer nervous system, through its touch and its voice and its steady breath and heartbeat, is communicating something directly to the other's autonomic state. And the other nervous system, reading these signals below the level of consciousness, responds by shifting. There is a word Porges uses for the nervous system's continuous, unconscious scanning of the environment for cues of safety or danger: neuroception. This is not perception in the usual sense. It is not a conscious process. It doesn't wait for you to decide whether you're safe. It happens automatically, rapidly, in parts of the nervous system that operate below awareness. Your nervous system is always neuroreceiving, always reading the tone of voices, the openness of faces, the tension or ease of the bodies around you, the quality of touch, and adjusting your internal physiological state accordingly without consulting you. This is why the feeling of safety, when it comes through touch, arrives before you think it. Your neuroception detected the cues of safety in the touch and the person doing the touching, the warmth, the steadiness, the gentleness, before your conscious mind had time to evaluate the situation. The autonomic state shift had already begun. You were already, biologically, beginning to soften. It is also why the feeling of unsafety can arrive before you can justify it. Sometimes you feel uncomfortable with someone's presence before you can name why, before you can point to any specific behavior or statement. Your neuroception has picked up something, a tension in the body, a quality in the voice, an energy in the touch, that your conscious mind hasn't yet processed into a thought. The body knows first. In these moments, it is worth trusting that knowing. Polyvagal theory also illuminates something that is important to understand about what safe touch is actually doing at the deepest level. When you are held by someone safe, their body is providing yours with something specific and irreplaceable. Evidence communicated through your skin and your nervous system that you are in the presence of a ventral vagal system that is engaged and functioning. A body that is calm, that is not braced, that is not poised to harm. A body that is close and warm and steady. And your nervous system reads this evidence and concludes below consciousness that it can stand down. This is what it means to feel safe. Not just the absence of danger, the positive presence of a signal received through the most ancient channels of the nervous system that says, in this moment you are held and you can rest. Now we arrive at the shadow side of this, the other side of the coin. Because understanding what safe touch does to the nervous system also means understanding what the absence of it does. And what it does is not subtle. For a long time, loneliness was categorized as an emotional experience, something that lived in the realm of feelings, perhaps related to thoughts and beliefs about social standing, perhaps responsive to cognitive reframing, perhaps addressable through better thinking. And while there is certainly a cognitive and emotional dimension to loneliness, the research of the past 30 years has increasingly made clear that it is also something else. It is a physiological state with measurable biological consequences. When a person is chronically without meaningful social contact, without regular touch, without the felt sense of belonging to another person or a community, without the co-regulation that close physical proximity with safe others provides, the nervous system responds. It shifts, not dramatically, not all at once, but persistently and in measurable ways. Cortisol levels rise in people who are chronically lonely. The sympathetic nervous system runs at a higher baseline. Inflammatory markers in the blood, molecules like cytokines that the immune system uses to communicate, increase in people experiencing persistent social isolation. The heart rate variability decreases, reflecting reduced vagal tone, a less regulated autonomic nervous system. Sleep quality deteriorates. The immune system, deprived of the regulatory effects of oxytocin and safe social contact, becomes less effective. These are not small effects. They are clinically significant. Researchers have compared the health effects of chronic loneliness to the effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. A comparison that initially sounds extreme until you look at the data behind it, which shows that the increased mortality risk associated with persistent social isolation is real and substantial. Loneliness is not a soft problem. It is a hard biological one. The brain changes in response to chronic loneliness too. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman, working in the field of social neuroscience, has presented evidence, drawn from brain imaging studies and from testimony in legal cases involving conditions like solitary confinement, that social pain activates the same neural regions as physical pain. Specifically, the anterior cingulate cortex, a region deeply involved in the distress component of pain, the part that makes pain feel not just sensory but upsetting, the part that makes you want it to stop, also lights up in response to experiences of social exclusion, rejection, and isolation. This is not a metaphor. When you feel socially excluded, your brain is processing that experience using the same neural machinery it uses for physical hurt. Loneliness does not merely feel painful in the way that sadness is painful. It feels painful in the way that something is physically wrong. And there is an important reason for this. For most of human evolution, for most of the millions of years during which our nervous systems were taking their current shape, being alone meant being in danger. An isolated human was a human without protection, without warmth sharing, without the collaborative vigilance that group living provides. The individual who was cut off from the group faced predators, exposure, food scarcity, and the thousand other threats that a group could collectively manage but an individual could not. The nervous system that learned to feel danger in aloneness, that learned to register social disconnection as a form of threat, was a nervous system that motivated its owner to rejoin the group, to seek safety through closeness. The ache of loneliness is ancient, purposeful, and biologically designed. It is the body sending a signal as clear and urgent as hunger. Something you need is missing, and you need to seek it. Loneliness also changes the way the nervous system reads the social environment. People who are chronically lonely show heightened vigilance for social threat. Their nervous systems are more likely to read neutral faces as hostile, more likely to interpret ambiguous social signals as rejecting, more likely to approach social interactions with a kind of braced, self-protective caution. This is not irrational. A nervous system that has found the social environment to be unreliable will logically become more watchful. But this watchfulness also makes it harder to form the connections that would resolve the loneliness. It becomes a self-reinforcing loop. Loneliness increases threat vigilance. Threat vigilance makes social connection harder to establish and sustain. Connection remains elusive, loneliness deepens. A study published in the journal Nature Neuroscience in 2020 found something striking. When people who had been isolated for a period of time were shown images of social interaction, people hugging, being together, laughing, the regions of the brain associated with craving were activated. The same regions that light up when a hungry person sees food. Social connection in these experiments wasn't just something people wanted, it was something they craved in the neurological sense of that word. Something for which there was a physical hunger. This hunger has a name in the scientific literature: skin hunger, or touch starvation, or touch deprivation. All of these terms point at the same experience. The deep, sometimes barely recognized longing for physical contact that accumulates in the body when touch has been absent too long. Many people experience it without naming it or understanding what it is. It manifests in subtle ways. An unusual comfort in long, hot showers. A tendency to wrap in blankets even when the temperature doesn't call for it. A reaching for pets in quiet moments. A wish to be closer to people than the social situation quite permits. The body, clever and persistent, is reaching for the closest available analog to what it actually needs. In a world that has become, for many people, less physically connected than any previous era of human life, smaller households, more solitary work, less incidental contact, the migration of social life onto screens where touch is impossible. This skin hunger is not a marginal experience. It is common. And the body's response to it is not metaphorical distress but physiological change. Here is something equally important to hold alongside everything we've talked about. A truth that complicates the picture in a necessary way. For some people, touch is not immediately soothing. For some people, touch is complicated. And understanding why, understanding it with genuine curiosity and without judgment, is part of understanding what touch really is and what the nervous system is really doing. The body that responds to safe touch with calm, with released oxytocin, with vagal activation and the loosening of cortisol, that body has learned to respond this way. The response is not automatic in a simple, mechanical sense. It is the result of experience, of a nervous system that has been taught, through repeated encounters over time, that touch from other people generally means safety, that physical closeness is something the defenses can afford to drop around. But what about a nervous system that has received different information? For people whose early experiences of touch were inconsistent, unreliable, or associated with harm, for people who grew up in environments where physical closeness preceded hurt, where the body of another person was sometimes a threat rather than a comfort, the nervous system learns something different. It learns a different equation for what touch means. And it encodes that equation not as a belief that can be consciously updated, but as a pattern in the very pathways that process touch before thinking happens. The nervous system learns through direct experience that touch or closeness, or the lowering of physical distance between self and other, or the particular quality of a body coming near, may be a precursor to danger. And so it stays alert. It keeps the threat system at a higher level of readiness. It doesn't let the defenses come down even when, consciously, the person wants them to, even when the mind says this is safe, this person is safe, this is okay. This is not a choice. This is not a character flaw or a failure of will or an irrational response. This is the nervous system doing its job with the information it has been given, implementing the protective strategies that experience taught it, in the only way it knows how. Research on what happens in the brain during touch in people who have experienced interpersonal trauma has found exactly what you might predict from this framework. When people with PTSD resulting from interpersonal trauma, abuse, assault, violation receive interpersonal touch, the brain responds differently than in people without this history. The hippocampus, which helps contextualize memories and emotional responses, shows suppressed activity during touch. Researchers interpret this as the hippocampus actively working to contain or suppress the memory associations that the touch is beginning to stir, associations between physical contact and previous harm. The amygdala, rather than quieting as it does in safe touch, may show heightened activation. The touch, experienced through the filter of what this nervous system knows about touch, registers as threat rather than comfort. And here is the thing about this that is both important and sometimes hard to hear. No amount of wanting it to be different, no amount of conscious intention, fully overrides this nervous system learning in the moment. Because the learning happened below consciousness, in the parts of the nervous system that respond before thinking happens. The alarm goes off before the mind has a chance to say, wait, this is actually okay. By the time the mind is forming that reassurance, the amygdala has already sounded, the sympathetic system has already stirred, and the experience of being touched feels wrong even when everything says it should feel fine. This is why healing for people who have this history is slow and nonlinear and cannot be rushed. The nervous system cannot simply be told to update its knowledge. It has to accumulate new experience. Slowly, carefully, with full control and consent at every step. until the accumulated evidence of safe touch begins to outweigh the older learning, until the body has enough new information to begin constructing a different prediction about what touch means. There are also people who experience touch differently for neurological reasons that have nothing to do with trauma or history. The sensory processing differences found in some people on the autism spectrum, for example, can mean that what registers as gentle pressure to most nervous systems may register as overwhelming or even painful to another. This is not a problem of insufficient courage or insufficient openness. It is a genuine difference in how the nervous system processes incoming sensory information, a matter of intensity and calibration rather than meaning or history. What the system needs in these cases is not encouragement to tolerate more, but recognition that the experience is genuinely different and that different kinds of contact, different amounts, different qualities may be what actually works. And then there are simply people who have a lower natural preference for physical closeness. People whose nervous systems are calibrated toward more autonomy, more personal space, who find the demands of sustained physical contact tiring rather than restorative. This is a real and valid variation in human beings. The neuroscience of touch as a need doesn't mean the same need exists in the same quantity in every person. Individual calibration matters, and it deserves respect. What all of this adds up to is a picture of touch that is not simple. It is not universally soothing, not automatically safe, not the same for every person. What it is always is deeply dependent on context, on the relationship, on the history of the person, on the quality of consent and attunement involved, on the characteristics of the nervous system receiving the touch. Touch without safety is not the same thing as touch with safety. The body knows the difference. The chemistry confirms it, but the picture also contains something hopeful. Because the nervous system, even one that has learned to associate touch with danger, even one that has carried that learning for decades, is never fully fixed. The brain remains plastic throughout life. New experiences, consistently safe, consistently respectful, delivered with genuine attunement and full control for the person receiving, do accumulate, do build a new kind of evidence, do over time begin to shift what the nervous system expects when a body comes close. Healing is slow, but it is not a fiction. The body can learn again and again until the very end of life that safety is possible. I want to take you back now to the middle of the 20th century, to a university laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin, where a psychologist named Harry Harlow was about to inadvertently change how the entire scientific community thought about love, about attachment, about what infants need and why. It was the late 1950s. The dominant scientific view of attachment, of the bond between parent and child, was called cupboard theory. The idea, derived largely from behaviorist principles that were fashionable at the time, was that infants became attached to their primary caregivers for a simple mechanistic reason. The caregiver provided food. Love, in this framework, was essentially a learned association. The mother was repeatedly paired with the pleasure of being fed, and so the infant developed a preference for the mother. It was elegant, reductive, and, as Harlow would show, wrong. Harlow was working with infant rhesus monkeys in his laboratory at the University of Wisconsin, and he had noticed something that puzzled him. The baby monkeys in his nursery had become intensely, almost desperately attached to the soft cloth diapers that lined the bottoms of their cages. When the diapers were removed for cleaning, the infants would become visibly and immediately distressed, clinging to whatever scraps of soft material remained, pressing themselves against them, finding what comfort they could from the contact. They were not looking for food. The diapers contained no nutrition. They were reaching for softness, for the feeling of something yielding and warm against their bodies. This observation sent Harlow toward one of the most famous experimental designs in the history of psychology. He created 2 artificial surrogate mothers for infant rhesus monkeys. One was constructed from bare metal wire, cylindrical, cold, hard, with a feeding bottle attached so it could provide milk. The other was built on the same wire frame but was covered in soft terry cloth, warm, textured, comforting to press against, but provided no food whatsoever. The question was simple and radical. What would the monkeys prefer? If the cupboard theory was correct, if attachment formed because the caregiver provided food, the monkeys should prefer the wire mother. That's where the milk was. But if something else was going on, something more primary and more physical than the reward of nutrition, then the cloth mother might win even without offering anything to eat. The results were unambiguous. The monkeys chose the cloth mother. Overwhelmingly, decisively, across every variation of the experimental setup. When both mothers were present, the infants would nurse briefly from the wire mother and then immediately return to the cloth mother, pressing themselves against her, sometimes spending 17 or 18 hours of the day in contact with her soft surface. When only the cloth mother was present, with the milk attached to her instead of the wire mother, the monkeys hardly visited the wire mother at all. But the most revealing part of the experiment was what happened when Harlow introduced a frightening stimulus into the room. A mechanical toy that moved unpredictably or made a loud noise, the kind of thing that would startle and frighten a young monkey. When the cloth mother was present, the infants would initially rush to her, pressing themselves against her, clinging. And then, gradually, the clinging would ease. The infant would turn to look at the frightening object. And sometimes, after enough time pressed against that soft, warm presence, the infant would let go and begin to explore, would approach the frightening thing, would investigate it, would, from the secure base of having been held, become capable of facing what was frightening. Without the cloth mother, the same infants showed none of this capacity. They would huddle on the floor of the cage, rocking, sucking their thumbs, paralyzed. They would not explore. They would not approach the frightening object. The frightening thing remained simply frightening, with nothing in the environment that made approaching it possible. The cloth mother, who provided no food, no warmth, she was not heated, no biological necessity of any conventional kind, gave the infants a secure base from which to be in the world. And without that base, everything unraveled. The infants were, quite literally, unable to cope. Harlow called what the cloth mother provided contact comfort, and in 1958, at the 66th Annual Convention of the American Psychological Association, he delivered his presidential address, titled, with elegant simplicity, "The Nature of Love," in which he presented these findings to the scientific community. The impact was substantial and lasting. It challenged the behaviorist reduction of love to learned association with food reward. It provided empirical evidence for what attachment theorists like John Bowlby had been arguing on theoretical grounds, that the bond between parent and child was about something more than instrumental utility, that it was about the felt safety of a body close by, that what infants needed as desperately and as essentially as they needed food was the experience of being held. Harlow's subsequent experiments, some of which became controversial for their harshness, deepened and darkened the picture. Monkeys kept in complete social isolation with no contact of any kind, no cloth mother, no other animals, for extended periods showed profound and, in the case of longer isolation periods, irreversible psychological damage when they were eventually reintegrated with other monkeys. They couldn't play. They couldn't engage normally. They sat at the edges of social groups or engaged in bizarre, repetitive behaviors. Some died after refusing to eat. The isolation had not just made them lonely, it had damaged the very capacity for connection. The length of the isolation mattered. 3 months of isolation produced effects that could, with time and careful reintegration, be partially undone. 6 months produced more lasting damage. A year of complete isolation in the critical early period appeared to be irreversible. The window during which the nervous system was learning what touch means, and whether to expect it or not, was not infinite. What happened in that window stayed. What Harlow's monkeys were reaching for, pressed against that cloth-covered wire, was not comfort in any abstract or sentimental sense. It was the signal written into the oldest systems of the mammalian nervous system that they were not alone, that a body was near, that whatever was frightening or uncertain or overwhelming in the world, there was something solid and warm to press against. The cloth mother, even as an inanimate object that could not respond or reciprocate, provided something that activated those deep calming systems, and in her absence, those systems could not run. The infants ran to her when frightened, not because she could protect them, but because she was soft, and because softness, the specific tactile quality of something yielding and warm, spoke to something in the nervous system that said, "This is like a body, this is close to what you need, this is the closest thing available to not being alone." You are descended from millions of generations of creatures who held each other, who groomed each other's fur, who pressed their bodies together against the cold of an ancient night, who communicated, through the specific frequency of a slow, warm caress, the most important message the nervous system can receive. I am here, you are not alone, you can let your defenses down for now. That history is in your skin. It is in those C-tactile fibers that wake up when someone moves gently and slowly across your arm. It is in the vagus nerve that quiets when a warm body is close. It is in the hypothalamus that releases oxytocin when someone holds you with care. It is in every measurable decrease in cortisol that follows safe touch, in every increase in heart rate variability that accompanies being gently held. Your body is ancient, and what it knows about being held is very old. If you found tonight's journey useful or beautiful or strange in the best way, please consider leaving a like. It helps this channel reach other people who might need a quiet place to land at the end of a long day. And if you'd like to keep exploring the science of sleep, of the mind, of the remarkable machinery of being human, subscribe so the next one finds you. We'll be here when it's late and you need somewhere to go. It is worth pausing here to consider a question that might seem basic but is actually quite profound. Why did this system evolve at all? Why does the mammalian body have dedicated nerve fibers tuned specifically to the frequency of a gentle caress? Why does the nervous system go so quiet so specifically in response to being held? Why is the chemistry of safety so tightly tied to the physics of another body nearby? The answer lies in the particular strategy that mammals, as a group, took in the story of life on Earth. And it is a story worth telling, because it helps explain why touch reaches us where it does, why it is not a preference or a cultural artifact, but something written into the deepest architecture of what we are. Mammals are, among other things, defined by a commitment to parental care that is unusually extensive in the animal kingdom. Most reptiles, most fish, most insects lay eggs and move on. The young are on their own from the beginning. But mammals are different. Mammalian young are born profoundly dependent. They cannot regulate their own body temperature. They cannot find food. They cannot protect themselves. For an extended period after birth, a period that in humans stretches to many years, a young mammal requires continuous care from other members of its species to survive. This created an extraordinary evolutionary pressure. Any mammal born with a nervous system that did not urgently seek closeness to its caregiver would quickly die. Any caregiver whose biology did not make the provision of that closeness rewarding and compelling would raise fewer surviving offspring. So the systems that make physical closeness feel necessary to the young, and that make caring for the young feel rewarding to the parent, were selected for over millions of generations with great force. The C-tactile fibers in the skin, the vagal response to gentle holding, the oxytocin released by touch, these are the biological machinery of that selection. They are the physical substrate of the fact that mammals evolved to need each other, to derive comfort and calm from proximity, to suffer in isolation and thrive in closeness. And in primates, the group of mammals to which humans belong, this was taken even further. Primates are intensely social creatures. They live in complex groups with sophisticated social hierarchies, alliances, friendships, and communication systems. They spend substantial portions of their day in grooming. The careful, attentive, slow manual removal of debris and parasites from another animal's fur. Grooming in primates is not primarily about hygiene, though it serves that function too. It is primarily a social act, a bonding act, an act of intimacy and trust. And here is what is interesting from a neuroscience perspective. Primate grooming involves exactly the kind of slow, gentle skin temperature touch that activates C-tactile afferents. The specific quality of touch that occurs when one primate carefully grooms another, slow, attentive, moving at roughly 3 centimeters per second across the surface, is almost perfectly calibrated to the preferences of those slow social touch nerve fibers. As though the fibers and the behavior evolved together, which, in a sense, they did. When primates are groomed, their cortisol levels drop. Their vagal tone increases. Oxytocin rises. They relax visibly. Their muscles soften. Their eyes half close. Sometimes they seem to fall into something close to sleep. The biology of the groomed animal shifts measurably toward the state of safety and rest. And the act of grooming releases its own chemistry in the groomer. It is a socially reinforcing act for both participants. Human beings don't groom each other in this literal way, for the most part. But the biology that made grooming so regulatory for our primate ancestors is still entirely present in us. When we stroke someone's hair, when we rub a back, when we draw a hand gently along an arm, we are activating the exact same system. The C-tactile fibers, the vagal pathway, the oxytocin release, the cortisol reduction. Everything that grooming did for our primate relatives, gentle human touch does for us. This is not an accident of history. It is the continuity of an ancient biological logic. That close, attentive, gentle physical contact between individuals who trust each other is regulatory in the deepest sense. That it calms the nervous system, that it signals, in the language the nervous system can most directly read, that you are not alone, that you are seen and attended to, that you are safe in the company of this other being. And it is worth noting that in human societies around the world, touch remains central to the ways people signal care, belonging, and relationship. Despite enormous variation in exactly how touch is used and what is considered appropriate, variations that are real and important and deserve respect. Every human culture has forms of touch that serve the function of bonding and reassurance. Every culture holds its children. Every culture has gestures of physical comfort for grief or fear. The specific forms vary. The underlying biology does not. There is something else worth noting about touch that doesn't get mentioned as often as the chemistry and the nerve fibers. The way that the memory of touch works. The way that being held, even briefly, can leave something in the body that persists after the touch is gone. When you are held by someone safe, the physiological changes that accompany that touch do not disappear the instant the contact ends. The decrease in cortisol continues for a period afterward. The vagal tone that the touch helped activate remains elevated for some time. The oxytocin that was released continues to circulate. The autonomic state that the touch helped shift toward rest, toward safety, away from the slightly activated vigilance of a long day, persists. This is part of why physical affection at bedtime, or in the final hours before sleep, is so powerfully conducive to good rest. It is not just that the touch feels nice in the moment. It is that the touch shifts the body's physiological state, and that shifted state continues into sleep, making the transition from wakefulness to sleep smoother, reducing the time the nervous system spends in that slightly activated place where it can be hard to release the day. There is also evidence that touch affects memory consolidation. The process by which the brain, during sleep, converts recent experiences into longer-term memories. A nervous system that goes into sleep in a calmer, more regulated state, with lower cortisol and higher vagal tone, consolidates memories more effectively. The stress hormones that are elevated in chronic stress actively interfere with memory consolidation, which is part of why people who are chronically stressed often find that their memory deteriorates. Safe touch, by reducing cortisol and increasing the quality of the physiological state the body enters sleep in, may contribute to better memory function over time. And there is something else about the memory of touch that is worth holding. Touch from the people we love builds something in the nervous system that doesn't disappear even when those people aren't present. Researchers who study attachment, the quality of the bond between infants and their primary caregivers, find that children who have received consistent, warm, responsive physical care develop what is called secure attachment. And one of the hallmarks of secure attachment is the ability to use the memory of a safe relationship as a source of regulation even when the attachment figure is not physically present. A securely attached toddler, separated from their caregiver and placed in an unfamiliar environment, will show distress. But they will also, after some time, be able to engage with the environment. They use the internal representation of the safe relationship, the felt memory of being held and cared for, to partially regulate themselves in the caregiver's absence. The memory of touch, repeated over many experiences, becomes something the nervous system can draw on. It becomes a resource. This is one of the most important and hopeful findings in attachment research. The experiences of being held, not just once, not just occasionally, but consistently and reliably, build something that persists. They build, in the architecture of the nervous system, something like a background confidence that warmth exists and that it can be returned to. And this confidence shapes how the nervous system approaches everything else. How much of its resources it needs to spend on vigilance, how capable it is of genuine rest, how easily it can let its defenses down when the situation warrants it. The opposite is also true, which is why early touch deprivation and the inconsistency of care in infancy have such lasting effects. The nervous system that never received consistent contact comfort builds a different kind of baseline, one organized around the expectation that comfort is unreliable, that closeness is uncertain, that the defenses need to stay up because safety cannot be assumed. This is the physiology of insecure attachment, and it can echo through a whole life, shaping relationships and nervous system function in ways that the person may not even be aware of. But even here, the news is not only bleak, because the adult nervous system is not static. New experiences of consistent safe touch, in the context of trusting relationships, therapeutic relationships, close friendships, romantic partnerships, even certain kinds of professional touch like massage therapy, can slowly, over time, provide the accumulated experience of contact comfort that the system did not receive early. It is harder work and it takes longer than if it had happened in infancy when the nervous system was most plastic. But it is possible. The pathways that respond to safe touch are there, and they respond regardless of how old you are or what your history has been, when the conditions are right. There is one more dimension of being held that I want to touch on before we close tonight's journey. When you are held by another person in a true embrace, arms around each other, bodies pressed close, you can often feel their heartbeat. If you are resting your head on their chest, you can hear it. If you are close enough, you might even begin to feel your own heartbeat synchronizing over the course of a few minutes with theirs. This is not your imagination. Heart rate synchronization between people in close physical contact has been documented in research settings. It is a real phenomenon, mediated by the same vagal and autonomic systems we've been discussing all evening. And there is something about this that strikes me as one of the more extraordinary things the body does. Two separate nervous systems, each with their own rhythms, their own histories, their own states of activation or rest, coming into physical proximity and beginning slowly to find a shared rhythm. The calmer one tends to draw the more activated one toward it, rather than the reverse. This is the biology behind the phrase that therapists sometimes use, co-regulation. Two nervous systems, through the channels of touch and proximity and the shared rhythm of breathing and heartbeat, regulating each other. This is why the presence of a calm, regulated person can be so powerful in moments of distress. Not because of what they say, though words matter, but because of what their physiology communicates through the channels of touch and proximity to the physiology of the person who is suffering. The steady heartbeat, the slow breathing, the warmth of a body that is not frightened, these travel through the touch pathways and the vagal connections and say, in the language the nervous system understands most directly, this is survivable. You can come back down. I am here and I am not afraid, and that means something about whether you need to be afraid. This is also, incidentally, part of why holding a sleeping baby can be so calming to the adult holding them. Not just emotionally, but physiologically. The baby's nervous system, in deep sleep, is running in a very parasympathetically dominant state. And the adult holding the baby, in close physical contact with that deeply calm physiology, often finds their own nervous system shifting in that direction. The calm is contagious. The biology is mutual. And here, near the end of tonight's journey, is perhaps the most fundamental thing to understand about all of this. Being held is not a unidirectional experience. It is not something done to you by another. It is a meeting, a dialogue between nervous systems, conducted in the oldest language there is, the language of warmth and pressure and proximity and the shared rhythm of bodies at rest. When you are held safely, your body is not just receiving. It is also participating. It is responding. It is, if the person holding you is someone you trust, someone you feel safe with. It is also, in its responding, giving something back. Your heartbeat and your breath and the gradual softening of your muscles are also communicating to them. Your nervous system is also contributing to the co-regulation, adding your own calm signals to theirs, helping to create between the two of you a shared physiological space that is more regulated than either of you might be alone. This is what the polyvagal theorists mean when they say that safety is a social achievement. It is not something one person provides and another receives. It is something that happens between people, in the space where their nervous systems meet, through the channels of touch and voice and proximity and presence. It is built collaboratively between bodies in the moments when both are willing to be close. And so we arrive, at last, at the simplest truth underneath all of this science. Underneath the C-tactile afferents and the vagal tone and the oxytocin and the polyvagal hierarchy. Underneath all of this beautiful and specific complexity, there is something very plain. The body knows when it is held. It has always known. It will always know. Before the mind understands what is happening, before consciousness has had a chance to weigh in, the body is already responding to the presence of another body with warmth and safety. Shifting, settling, releasing, moving toward rest. This knowledge is ancient. It is shared with every mammal that has ever lived. It is in the fur of monkeys pressed together on a cold night, in the slow grooming of a primate by its family member, in the pressing of a newborn against its mother's skin in the first hour of its life, in the reaching of every infant who has ever held up its arms to be held. It is in you. And tonight, wherever you are, whatever has been difficult, whatever remains unresolved, you can let that knowledge be enough. You can let the fact of your own breathing, slow and deepening, be a kind of touch from the inside. You can let the weight of your blanket be the closest available analog to contact comfort that your body has right now. You can let the darkness and the quiet be what they have always been for the human nervous system. Signals that the day is done, that the vigilance can ease, that the body's long project of returning to rest can finally, for a few hours, proceed. You are held tonight in ways you may not even notice. By the air that supports every breath. By the surface beneath you that receives your weight. By the accumulated memory, stored somewhere in the biology of you, of every time in your life that you have been genuinely safely held. Your nervous system knows how to come home to rest. It has been doing it for as long as there have been nervous systems. Let's return for a moment to the insula, that deep fold of cortex that receives the signal from the C-tactile afferents, because it deserves more attention than we gave it earlier, and because understanding it helps explain something beautiful about what touch is actually doing in the brain. The insula is a region that is involved in a wide range of functions, all of which share a common thread. They all have to do with the body's awareness of itself from the inside. The experience of hunger is processed in the insula. So is thirst. So is the feeling of your heartbeat, the sensation of fullness or emptiness in your stomach, the felt sense of fatigue in your muscles. The insula is sometimes described as the seat of interoception, the brain's ongoing representation of the body's internal state, and it is closely connected to the processing of emotion because emotions are, in very large part, the brain's interpretation of what the body is doing. When the C-tactile afferents send their signal to the posterior insula during safe, gentle touch, they are adding to this continuous map of the body's internal state. They are contributing a new piece of information to the brain's ongoing model of what the body is experiencing, and the specific quality of that information, arriving from nerve fibers tuned specifically to safe social contact, traveling via a pathway distinct from the analytical touch pathway, arriving in a region specialized for emotional body awareness rather than sensory discrimination. This information arrives with a specific emotional valence. It arrives carrying something like warmth, something like safety, something like the felt sense that the body is in the company of something kind. This is remarkable because it means that the emotional quality of safe touch is not added on afterward, as an interpretation of a neutral sensory event. It is built into the pathway. The nerve fibers themselves are selective for the qualities of touch that tend to occur in safe social contact. The brain region they project to is specialized for emotional body awareness. The circuit was built to register this specific kind of touch as something that matters, as something that is good. The emotional interpretation is not after the fact. It is built into the hardware. This also helps explain why touch can reach places that words cannot. When a person is in acute distress, grieving, frightened, overwhelmed, the prefrontal cortex, which processes language and generates verbal reassurance, is often relatively offline. The stress response suppresses its function. It becomes harder to think clearly, harder to form or process complex language, harder to be reached by reasoning. But the insula is not suppressed by stress. The vagus nerve is not suppressed by stress. The C-tactile afferents are not suppressed by stress. The pathway that touch uses runs through different territory than the pathway that words use, and that different territory stays open when the more cognitively demanding pathways are closed. This is why a hand on the shoulder can do something in a moment of grief that no sentence can. Not because touch is more powerful than language in some abstract ranking of human experience, but because in the specific conditions of acute distress, the pathway of touch remains available when others do not. It speaks to parts of the nervous system that are still listening. It does not require the thinking mind to receive it and benefit from it. It arrives and the body responds below and before any cognitive processing. This is something that caregivers and therapists and anyone who has ever sat with someone in genuine distress already knows intuitively. That there are moments when speaking is beside the point. When the most useful thing you can do is to be close, to be warm, to put your hand on someone's hand, and let the old slow pathways do their work. There is one more dimension of touch that deserves its own moment in tonight's journey, and that is the specific quality of pressure. Weight, containment, the feeling of being surrounded. Deep pressure touch, the firm, even pressure of being wrapped, swaddled, or held tightly, activates different receptors than the light stroking we've been discussing. Where C-tactile afferents respond most powerfully to light, moving touch, deep pressure engages a different class of receptors, including Pacinian corpuscles and Meissner's corpuscles, which respond to sustained pressure and the beginning and ending of contact. These receptors have different pathways and somewhat different effects. deep pressure touch has its own calming mechanisms. It has been shown to increase vagal tone, reduce heart rate, decrease electrodermal activity, a measure of sympathetic nervous system arousal, and in some studies, reduce cortisol. Occupational therapists have used deep pressure input through weighted blankets, tight hugging, firm massage as an intervention for people who find it difficult to regulate their arousal state. For many people, the sensation of weight or contained pressure provides something the nervous system experiences as regulatory. This is almost certainly why human beings across cultures swaddle their infants. The feeling of firm, enclosing wrapping, mimicking, perhaps, the tight warmth of the womb, seems to calm the newborn nervous system in ways that are measurable, reducing crying and improving sleep. And the same principle extends into adulthood. The current widespread use of weighted blankets, blankets filled with glass beads or other material to add substantial weight, designed to simulate the feeling of being held, has grown out of the same observation. That distributed deep pressure across the body activates calming mechanisms in the nervous system. A weighted blanket doesn't communicate safety in the social sense that a human embrace does. It doesn't provide co-regulation from another nervous system. It doesn't release oxytocin through the C-tactile-mediated social touch pathway. But it does provide something the nervous system can use. The proprioceptive input, the sense of where your body is in space, grounded and contained, combined with the mild activation of deep pressure receptors, seems to support parasympathetic tone, to help the nervous system find a slightly lower gear. This is the body being clever in the absence of what it actually needs, finding the next best thing, using whatever inputs are available to nudge the physiology toward the state it's looking for. And this is worth honoring, rather than dismissing. The nervous system is not foolish. It knows the difference between a weighted blanket and a person's arms. At some level, certainly it does. But it also uses what it has. It makes the most of available inputs. It takes the deep pressure and the warmth and the quiet of the night and builds from them, imperfectly but genuinely, something resembling rest. You are doing this right now, whether you know it or not. The surface beneath you, the covers over you, the contained space of wherever you've chosen to sleep tonight. Your nervous system is using all of this, taking in the sensory information, integrating it, shifting its state just slightly in the direction it needs to go. It is working below your awareness toward rest. It has been doing this your whole life. The final thing I want to say tonight is this: the science of touch, in all its beauty and complexity, ultimately points towards something very simple. The need to be held is not sentimental. It is not weakness. It is not a dependency to be outgrown. It is the deepest truth about what kind of creature you are: a mammal, a primate, a social being whose nervous system was built to regulate itself through connection, through closeness, through the felt evidence of other warm bodies nearby. And the body's ability to soften when it is held, to release what it has been carrying, to slow down and come toward rest. This is not a failure of self-sufficiency. It is the fulfillment of a design that took millions of years to perfect. It is the nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do, in exactly the conditions it was built to need. You are built for this. You have always been built for this. And whenever it is available, whenever a safe, warm, trusted body is near, your body will know what to do with it. Long before your mind has a thought about it, your body will already be on its way home. We've traveled through the skin and the slow, remarkable nerve fibers that light up in response to gentle caress. We've followed the signal inward to the insula, where it registers not as information about the world, but as something emotionally meaningful. We've moved through the vagus nerve, that great wandering river of calm, and understood how touch activates it and what that activation does. Slowing the heart, deepening breath, shifting the body from its low-level state of readiness toward genuine rest. We've explored the chemistry that follows. Oxytocin rising, cortisol falling, dopamine and serotonin and endorphins joining the conversation. The whole biochemical landscape of the body shifting in the direction of ease. We've looked at the polyvagal architecture of the nervous system and understood that safety is not just a thought or a feeling. It is a physiological state, created in large part through co-regulation with another nervous system. We've sat with what happens when touch is absent and felt the weight of what that absence costs. We've given attention to the people for whom touch is complicated, whose nervous systems have learned a different equation about what physical closeness means. And we've visited Harry Harlow's Wisconsin laboratory, where monkeys pressed against cloth surrogates taught us something we needed to hear, that the need for contact comfort is not a luxury. It is as primary as the need for food. Now let's come back to where we started. That moment when someone puts their arms around you and something in you just gives. What is actually happening in that moment? The skin receives the signal first. The C-tactile fibers, slow and unmyelinated, wake up in response to the warmth and the pressure and the gentle movement. They begin to fire at the frequency they evolved for, that specific speed, that specific gentleness, that specific warmth at skin temperature. Their signal travels inward on the slow road to the insula, where it arrives not as data about the location and quality of a touch, but as something that the emotional brain registers simply as something kind is happening. Simultaneously, or in the moments that follow, the vagus nerve begins to respond. The cardio-inhibitory fibers engage. The heart rate slows, or at least it becomes possible to let it slow. Breathing deepens, or the body relaxes enough that deeper breathing can happen naturally. The internal state of the body begins its quiet shift from the slightly elevated, slightly alert place where it spends so much of its time, toward the older, quieter, more sustainable place of rest. The hypothalamus, reading all of these signals together and integrating them with the social context the whole nervous system is reading. The warmth of the person, the quality of their touch, the history of the relationship, the overall message that this is safe, begins releasing oxytocin into the bloodstream and into the brain itself. The amygdala softens, its continuous monitoring of the environment eased by the oxytocin and by the absence of threat signals. Cortisol, which had been sustaining the background hum of the stress response, begins to fall. And all of this biology is happening in the body before the mind has had its first conscious thought about any of it. You feel the loosening, the breath, the beginning of something like relief. You might think, this is nice. You might think, I didn't know how much I needed this. You might not think anything at all. Just feel the change, the shift, the body finding its way back to something it had been moving away from all day. The body has done what it was always built to do. It has received, through the skin, the oldest message there is, you are not alone. And it has responded in every way it knows how by becoming a little more safe. There is something that I find quietly beautiful about all of this, and I want to try to say it before we end tonight. Your body has spent its entire existence From the first weeks of your development in the womb, learning to distinguish safety from threat. And it has always, from the very beginning, used the presence of another body, the warmth of it, the touch of it, the rhythm of another heartbeat nearby, as one of its primary sources of evidence that things are okay. This is not learned behavior in the simple sense. It is architecture. It is the structure of your nervous system, built over millions of years of evolution in creatures who survived because they were not alone. You are wired for connection the way you are wired for breathing. Not as an add-on, not as a nice feature, but as something load-bearing. Something that the rest of the system depends on. And so on the nights when you feel a bit unmoored, a bit without anchor, a bit like the day has been too much and your own company is not quite enough, what you are feeling is not weakness. What you are feeling is your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, sending signals upward from the body. Something I need is not quite present enough tonight. Something warm, something close, something that slows the heart and quiets the watchful amygdala and says, below all words and all thinking, you are not alone. If you have been held today or recently, or even just touched briefly and kindly by another person, your body already knows. It has already filed that information and begun working with it. It has already used it to do a little of the quiet work of returning to baseline. And even if you haven't, even if today was one of those days that was largely just you, mostly inside your own life, without much contact with another body, your nervous system still has resources tonight. The slow breath you are taking right now is activating the vagus nerve. The weight of whatever is covering you, pressing gently and evenly across your body, is activating pressure receptors that send their own calming signals through the nervous system. The quiet of the room, the dark, the dropping temperature of night, all of this is telling your biology that it is time to come down. And you carry something else, too, that I want to name before we end tonight. You carry, in your body, the accumulated memory of every time you have been held safely. Every gentle touch you have ever received that felt genuinely kind. Every embrace that made something in you release. Every moment of contact comfort that your nervous system received and stored and built into its model of what the world can be. That memory is not just emotional. It is biological. It is written into the calibration of your vagal tone, into the baseline of your oxytocin system, into the sensitivity of those C-tactile fibers and the pathways they connect to. You have been held before. The body remembers this. And some part of the way your nervous system runs, tonight, right now, is shaped by that memory. The body is always trying to find its way back to safety. That is its deepest project, its oldest project, the thing it has been doing since before you had a self to be aware of. And it knows the way. The way home for the nervous system has always been warmth, contact, the quiet certainty that you are not alone. Let your breathing slow now. Let the weight of you settle into whatever is beneath you. Let the muscles that have been holding everything upright all day finally receive permission to rest. Your body already knows how to do this. It has been learning how since long before you were born. You are the latest version of something very old. A nervous system that survived because it could find safety in the presence of others and learned to carry that safety inward, to rest in it, even when night came and the others were not immediately close. Tonight, perhaps just for a little while, let that be enough. You are held by the dark, by the quiet, by the slow, reliable rhythm of your own breathing. by the ancient biological fact that you have always been woven into something larger than your solitary self. And your body knows this. Even now it knows. Sleep well,